Now that you can read a question closely, this outcome is all about answering it. We'll move through 3 stages together: planning your response, writing it clearly, and presenting it in the right format. Once the question is clear, building your answer happens in 3 stages: plan, write, present. First, you devise a detailed plan, then you use it to write something coherent and logical, and finally you present it in the format the task asks for. The real beauty of a good plan is that when you sit down to write, you're only choosing words, because you've already decided what you're going to say. Planning can feel like a delay, but it's actually the opposite. It turns one intimidating task into a handful of small, manageable steps, keeps your answer on the question and in a sensible order, and helps you balance things so no point sprawls while another gets a single line. Best of all, you spot the gaps, a missing example or a thin argument before you write, not halfway down the second page. A few words to keep in your back pocket. A plan is just a short outline of what each part of your response will contain and in what order. A key point is a main idea that supports your answer, and a counter-argument is a point for the other side that you then respond to. And signposting is the little phrases, things like firstly, however, and in conclusion, that guide your reader through the argument. One popular way to plan is a mind map, with the question sitting in the middle and branches fanning out to the introduction, your key points, counter-arguments, examples, and conclusion. The advantage is seeing the whole answer on a single page, so the balance is obvious at a glance. That said, plenty of learners prefer a straight numbered list or a table, so use whatever genuinely helps you think. If you'd like a framework, here's a reliable one. Start from your analysis of the command word on topic and scope. Jot down how you'll open and how you'll close. Choose 3 or 4 key points, making sure at least one covers the opposite view. Then, for each point, note an example or 2 from your research, and finally record the linking phrases and the sources you'll need to acknowledge. By that stage, the writing almost does itself. There's no single correct way to plan, so it's worth trying a few tools. A linear outline is just a numbered list of points in order. A mind map branches ideas out from the question. A table gives you point, evidence, and source in neat columns. And some people swear by sticky notes, one idea per note, then shuffled into the best order. Pick whatever fits you and the task in front of you. A quick word on AI writing aids, since they're everywhere now. Used well, and only if your college allows them, they can suggest a structure or act as a critical friend that checks your plan actually covers the question. Used badly, they write the answer for you, and at that point it's no longer your own work. Always test what the tool produces against your real sources, because it can be confidently wrong, and if you use it at any stage, be ready to declare it. Let's watch a detailed plan take shape. The question: discuss whether social media is the best way for a small cafe to attract new customers. The introduction would define social media marketing and set the cafe scene. Point 1. It's cheap and reaches local people with photos of daily specials on Instagram. Point 2. It builds a loyal community through comments and shares. Then a counter-argument, that word of mouth and a good location may matter more, before a conclusion that social media helps but works best alongside great service. Sources might include Bailey's Handbook and an official figure on internet use. Almost every response shares the same shape: an introduction, a body of key points, and a conclusion. The introduction opens outward from the question to set up your answer. Each body paragraph makes one key point and backs it with evidence. And the conclusion draws everything together to actually answer the question. It's simple, but it works every single time. A strong introduction quietly tells the reader what's coming and how. Briefly define the key terms from the question, then state the overall line you're going to take. Keep it short, just a few sentences that set a direction rather than summarize the whole essay. Something like, this essay defines social media marketing and argues that, for a small cafe, it works best alongside good service, does the job nicely. In the body, give each paragraph a single job, one key point, properly developed. Open with a topic sentence that states the point plainly, support it with evidence, an example or a reference, then explain how it answers the question before you move on. A pattern you'll hear again and again is PEEL, which stands for point, evidence, explain, link, and it keeps paragraphs tight and purposeful. Let's spell PEEL out. Point is your topic sentence, the paragraph's main idea. Evidence is the fact, example, or reference that backs it up. Explain is where you show how that evidence supports the point and answers the question, and it's often the part learners rush. And link is a closing sentence that carries the reader on to the next idea or back to the question. 4 small moves, 1 clear paragraph. Strong academic writing never sounds one-sided. A counter-argument is simply a point for the opposing view that you then answer, and you signal it clearly with phrases like, however, some would argue that, or on the other hand. Showing you've genuinely weighed both sides makes your final judgment far more convincing. And remember, higher command words like discuss and evaluate positively expect it. Here's PEEL in the flesh on our cafe question. Point: social media is a low-cost way to reach local customers. Evidence: the cafe can post photos of daily specials to hundreds of local followers for free. Explain: because it costs so little, even a cafe on a tight budget can advertise regularly and stay in people's minds. Link: however, reaching people online only helps if there's a reason to visit, which leads neatly to the value of good service. Notice how every sentence pulls its weight, and nothing is filler. Your conclusion pulls the key points together and gives a clear answer. Echo the wording of the question so the reader sees you've genuinely addressed it, and resist the urge to smuggle in new evidence, because the conclusion is for landing the plane, not taking off again. For a discuss or evaluate question, this is exactly where your overall judgment belongs. Coherence is what makes a response read as one connected argument rather than a pile of separate facts. Put your points in an order where each one builds on the last, and use linking words to guide the reader. To add a point, reach for furthermore or moreover. To contrast, try however or whereas. And to close, use therefore or overall. Those small words do a surprising amount of quiet steering. 2 formats come up again and again, and they're quite different beasts. An essay flows as continuous, linked prose, arguing from introduction to conclusion with few or no headings, and it's common in the humanities and in discussion questions. A report is broken into labelled sections with headings, may carry an executive summary, findings and recommendations, and can happily use numbered points and tables, which makes it the norm in business and workplace tasks. Line them up feature by feature and the contrast is clear. An essay runs introduction, body and conclusion, rarely uses headings, avoids bullet points, and keeps a formal, flowing tone. A report is built from sections with headings, welcomes bullets where they help, and stays formal but concise and factual. Essays suit argument and discussion, while reports suit investigation and recommendation. Your tutor usually sets the format as part of the task, so always check the instructions first. Use what the subject expects, essays for discussion, reports for investigations, and keep it consistent without drifting between styles halfway through. And if you lean on AI to help draft or organize anything, that still needs declaring, as we'll cover in the next outcome. Remember, the right content in the wrong format still loses marks. To make that vivid, imagine the same findings on why a cafe should use social media presented 2 ways. As an essay, it's flowing paragraphs that argue the case, with no headings in sight. As a report, it's sections, Introduction, Findings and Recommendations, each clearly labelled. The evidence doesn't change at all, only the layout, the headings and the tone shift to fit the format the tutor asked for. So let's recap this outcome. Build your response in 3 stages: plan, write, then present. A detailed plan follows a framework, so you consider the question, note your opening and closing, choose your key points and a counterpoint, and add evidence and sources. Write in an introduction, body and conclusion, using peel and linking words to stay coherent. Include the other side, conclude without new information, and choose the format the task actually requires. And that wraps up planning and writing your response. If you'd like to strengthen these skills, the further reading is full of practical help, with Gretham's Guide to Writing Better Essays and Cottrell's Study Skills Handbook both walking through planning and paragraphing in more depth. The Manchester Academic Phrase Bank is a lovely resource for model introductions and conclusions, and the Open University's worked examples let you see tutor feedback in action. Do dip into them and then join me for Learning Outcome 3, where we polish the language, the style and the referencing.